Welcome to CivilNet. My guest today is Eric Hacopian, who is a political consultant in Southern California, where the Armenian community is huge by Armenian community standards, and where the expectations of Armenian community involvement in local politics are also huge. Eric, thank you for joining us. What you do for a living is fascinating. You help politicians get elected to office, and amongst those politicians, there are a lot of Armenians. You've helped elect a city councilman, several members of the Board of Education, a member of the California State Assembly, and you need to tell us, is it easy? Is it a no-brainer? Is it because there's Armenians, therefore there are votes, and therefore it's easy to elect? What's the challenge here?
Oh, there's tremendous challenges. Is because just because you have the raw population numbers, it doesn't mean you have the raw registration numbers. So, over the last 10 or 15 years, it's been a tremendous struggle in engaging and registering thousands and thousands upon new voters and bringing them into the process.
These are Armenians that you've registered so that they become voters?
Yes, absolutely. People who've gone through the citizenship process and have become eligible to become voters. And right now in LA County, you're hovering somewhere between 60 to 100,000 voters, depending on how you count, because a lot.
That's all.
Yes, it is. It's not where it should be. It's very concentrated in specific places.
How is that possible? We say there are 1 million plus Armenians in California.
In California, yes. I think there's part of the problem in counting this is because of the technology of identifying voters and last names. You always have an undercount of every ethnicity. But the way the Armenians have had impact by the fact that they're geographically concentrated, despite the fact that they're in smaller numbers, and also by the fact that they outperform and overperform other categories of voters.
What does that mean?
What that means is in normal elections that are not the November presidential elections, and most elections are not, the voter turnout is far lower. You're looking at 20%, 30%.
General voter turnout.
Far less than in other countries.
In other elections.
Yes, and in the United States we have far more elections than you do in other places. You have multiple, 3 or 4 elections a year. So the turnout and interest in those elections is far less. Whenever there is an Armenian American candidate, Armenian turnout is higher than, I can say, is above every subcategory of voters.
Really?
Yes. Absolutely.
Bravo.
Yeah, absolutely. But that requires tremendous patience, tremendous work, tremendous resources to actually bring those people to the process and make sure that they actually cast votes.
And they're casting votes because they're registered. They're registered because you've worked on them to register.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's not, I don't say that singularly. It's multiple people working on it. But it's, this is sort of, this is sort of the curve that's going on in the United States with almost every ethnic subgroup. But realistically, the Armenian community, especially in California, has far outperformed other groups as far as how quickly it has achieved electoral office in very competitive situations with relatively small numbers.
So you're saying that in other ethnic groups, it's taken longer
Absolutely.
For them to have representation in the various state bodies?
Absolutely.
How do you explain this?
I think every group has their weaknesses and they have their strengths. Armenians tend to be easier to organize.
Who knew?
Yeah, well, I think partly is because there's an identifiable Armenian media, which speaks to a given population. Now, that, and especially with the power of television, it's far more concentrated than it would have been with the power of the press 100 years ago if you were Italian and immigrant.
So we're talking about Southern California Armenian media.
Yes, absolutely. So that allows you to, and then there's community networks. There's, as you know, there are, apartment complexes, senior centers, which are 70, 80, 90% Armenian, and they organize each other.
Okay, so let's turn this around. As fascinating as that electoral political process is for me, let's turn this around and talk about then the benefits to the community specifically, and the benefits to the community simply for being an integrated part of the bigger picture.
I don't think we have seen the benefits to the full extent that we should yet, because that's really, it takes time. The American political process is very much based on seniority. So it takes time to be where you're at to actually deliver very tangible things for the community. And when you come from a small subgroup of voters, whoever the elected is obviously has to spend the vast majority of their time and resources in serving the entire community, not to be exclusive in any way. Otherwise, you have no political future. If the Armenian community has any future in American politics, it's in working with other people in coalition.
Do we know how to do that?
Not as well as we should, but I think there's it's, what has happened over the years is, at least in places where there's a lot of Armenians, like Southern California, the Armenian issues are sort of, and Armenian politics are sort of acculturated. What I mean by that is, it's hard to imagine anybody in Los Angeles County being an elected official who doesn't have Armenian staffers, doesn't have Armenian supporters. So the way you really achieve what you want is to become part of the political zeitgeist, where it's a given, where you will have Armenian friends, that you will have Armenian staffers, that you would know Armenian issues. That, I think, we have accomplished very clearly. As far as very specific tangible things, there are things here or there, grants for institutions. There's a firehouse here that can be turned into a cultural center. There's a lot of things like that, but they tend to be rather small right now. But I think the potential for them are huge as this acculturation happens.
So if we're talking about the institutional, systemic ability to integrate Armenians into the bigger political system, then the next question is whether Armenians are also going to be integrated in the issues that affect Southern California, the United States of America, beyond the 1-2 issues that are clearly of interest to us.
Well, I think there's, it's whenever you talk about any specific group, you're obviously, it's multifaceted. There are Armenians who are interested in the environment in Southern California that will not deal with an Armenian issue or frankly even care about it. So
that's good to hear.
Yeah, no, there's all kinds.
Almost good to hear.
Yeah, there's actually very good integration about people who are of Armenian descent and have other issue subgroups. They will join and become part of a collective of other things that are more specifically Armenian. But obviously, the community has vast issues and concerns which have complete overlap with other ethnicities. You're talking about the education system in a place like LA County, or Los Angeles is the second biggest district in the country, in the United States. By the way, it's with dozens of, probably hundreds of Armenian teachers now. They're very, Armenians are pretty much integrated into a lot of the aspects of public and political life, far more so than they were 10, 15 years ago, and their issues are far better understood. If you go to the April 24th rally in Montebello, there'll be people from SEIU there. The president of SEIU will be there.
SEIU is the Service
Employees International Union, which is the biggest union in the country, which some of its subgroups have tremendous, large numbers of Armenian members who actually happen to overperform in their activism.
Is it fair to say that the new diaspora generation, the generation of Armenians born in the U.S., raised in the U.S., of parents who are from Armenia, not the rest of the diaspora, are becoming more politically, socially active and visible more quickly? I would tell you, there's serious integration issues between,
for people who, especially from Armenian immigrants from Armenia, into American society. But that percentage, which is a small percentage, who are fantastic, and they're everywhere, and they are very active, and they are some of the best people you can have. But there are, as I don't think it's a mystery. There's the integration issue is, it's something. It is a push and pull as far as how much do you integrate, how much do you keep, and obviously, the most ideal situation is you take the best of the culture that you're integrating towards, and you keep the best of what you have, which is a very difficult dance to do, as you know.
The part of this integration process that amazes me is that student associations, university student association presidents, activists in major Armenian communities, the ones who are the noisemakers, the ones who are the most bold, audacious, are the children of those who've emigrated from Armenia?
Oh, absolutely. But part of that is because they're the largest number. I mean, if you were going to count the raw number of Armenians in Southern California, the largest single subgroup are Armenians from Armenia. And with people from the Middle East, the collective Middle East, being a third of that.
That includes Iran, that includes Lebanon?
Lebanon, Syria, and all those multitudes of countries. If you count all the former CIS countries, and there are Armenian immigrants who are not simply from Armenia, from refugees from Azerbaijan or Georgia or other places, there are probably about 60 to 70% of Armenians who live in Southern California are actually originally from CIS countries.
I wasn't going to ask, but you said Azerbaijan, so I'm going to ask. The Azerbaijani and Turkish presence in Southern California has changed drastically over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And it appears that this international struggle that we have here in this region and in international bodies is also moving to areas where our diaspora, at least, is strong. Do you feel that?
No, I think they make a specific push to do that in places where there's a strong Armenian presence. It's quite an elite level thing. It does not really involve Azeri citizens, and it's far more Azeri than Turkish, by the way. They hire the best lobbyists in town. They spend a lot of money.
They don't hire you.
No. That's not. In fact, I know a lot of the people that they hire. It's.
Is it effective?
I think if you have money to waste, yes, it's effective. But as far as the efficiency of what they really get out of it, they can take 15 assembly people to Baku, and you can have one LA Times article that talks about all these assembly people being bought off by a totalitarian state, and there goes the whole plan. So I don't know how effective it is, and one shouldn't be reactive. It's far more relevant to tell your story. It's far more relevant to tell our community's story, rather than it is to try to stop them from doing something which, for example, they built that LAF mall, they built that LAF park in Mexico City. How much good did that do?
Not much.
So I wouldn't, they have a tremendous presence and they need to be countered, but they need to be countered with effective things and real people saying real stories.
Which is what you do.
Yes. Oh, we try to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric Hacopian. Eric Hacopian is a political consultant in Southern California, where the Armenian community is just beginning to flex its muscle. Thank you for following us on CivilNet.